editor Miguel is working on
Fuck YouTube.
right now. Use my AnyDesk application, and what do I know? I see that he's looking at furry costumes again. So I gotta call him and let him know to get back to work. Or let's say my grandma calls me and she doesn't know how to work her computer. I can't drive an hour there just to tell her how to reboot it, start it back up, and open the browser.
Congress,
Sick
but there's
dog.
no way in hell that they're going to take away their own power. I mean, if you think that Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be trading stocks, then she shouldn't be trading stocks. Whatever happened to leading by example in this country?
Let's get into the real news. Oh, this is huge.
Violating the tax code or some SEC reg or some wetlands regulation that's never been voted on, but that you can be severely punished for breaking. Filling in a vernal pool in your backyard without knowing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If foreigners don't have to follow our laws, why are we paying our taxes? That's real. And by the way, shouldn't the people who live in a country, who are born in that country, get to decide who else lives in the country? Isn't it up to the population who comes and whether or not they want to be replaced by new people? Maybe they do. Okay. In a democratic republic, it's their right. But if they don't want to be, if they want to keep the
What's up,
population...
Mind? I mean, I'm moderate. I listen to everybody, bro. So, I mean... He's about to talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's one of the Congress ladies who was pushing for the Epstein files, and they kicked her out. So that's kind of, I'm interested about the facts.
Pretty much the same. They don't want any radical change, and that is the view of most people. Why can't they have that? And if they're not getting it, if you have a rogue presidential administration that spends 4 years just inviting the rest of the world to come to the United States and live off public funds,
I don't know. You'll see.
use public schools and drive on public roads and use the emergency rooms for healthcare, thereby destroying hospitals across the country, making it impossible for poor Americans who want to get their healthcare in emergency rooms to do so. Why is it crazy to make them leave and come and apply legally if they want to move here? And then turn them down if you want to, because again, it's your country. It's up to you who lives here. None of that is crazy. And so as you looked out, or as I looked out from the stage at Madison Square Garden on this sea of placards saying mass deportations now, it was kind of titillating, but it was also kind of thrilling because it wasn't just about deporting people, some of whom are probably very nice people, doubtless very nice people. Don't want to be...
No, quick question. So you said you got Steam. Do you have Game Pass? Or just whatever you got on Steam?
deported, of course, understand that.
Skip
But
this
their
part.
desire not to be deported has to think. He is a genius, and this may be unintentional, at bringing into stark relief the differences in worldviews between people and groups. Donald Trump is a living Rorschach.
Like Xbox Game Pass. Like, since I got Game Pass, I get a bunch of fucking free games to download. But yeah, like, I was just seeing if you had that.
Blot. You look at Donald Trump, what do you see? And so his purpose really for the last 10 years, maybe his most important purpose, has been to show the rest of us what the debate is really about and what the stakes really are. And what the people involved in those debates actually think. Because something about Donald Trump evokes a kind of involuntary honesty in people, and they just blurt out what they think. And that happened to Bill Kristol in 2017. Now, Kristol was a kind of half-hearted Trump supporter up until the moment in early 2016 when Trump traveled to Greenville, South Carolina and engaged in a Republican candidates debate, a primary debate with Jeb Bush and the other 27 people running that year, or whatever the number was.
Bro, Marvel.
And during that debate, he...
Personal opinion now. Might be a hot take. Marvel Rivals is a copycat. And it's also not It's not optimized. The only reason that that game is so popular is because of the prominent characters. Overwatch did it first with the 5v5. I just think Overwatch is superior if I'm going to choose to play a game like that. But at the same time, I need like a full fucking squad of 5 people. Otherwise, it's just not it. Because then it's like, oh, what the fuck? We got one bad healer, so the whole 5 stack is gonna do bad and lose the game. I don't know. So it doesn't have the capability where you can really just play solo. Otherwise, you end up on a team that's mixed up, bunch of shitters that don't know what they're doing. I thought it was common knowledge. That shit gives you depression if you play it too long. I don't know. Hold on. What other games do you got? Let's just start there. Yeah, no, sometimes like the reality too is like the other teams probably just 5 stack or they're better, right? So then there's always that. But when you have the added factor of, oh, it just has to be one fucking teammate to fumble the whole fucking game. I just thought, okay, from what I've seen about Diablo, is that it's just full of people who spend like thousands of dollars on their fucking character. And I don't know, just a game like that. Cause I'm a person when I start a game, I'll grind the shit out of it. Like 100%. Hmm. Well, isn't it like it's kind of like Warcraft in a way. Hmm. You ever seen this game? It's $5. You're basically it's like a improv comedy game where you're like in a courtroom and you have to like make up a case and go with it. This shit's pretty fucking funny. I'm gonna play it on stream pretty soon. If you've never tried this, this is pretty fun. Scary as shit. It's kind of my vibe, though. Mage Arena. Mage Arena is a good one. It's like fucking $2-3. Yeah, $3. And you basically like talk to cast the spells. So like, yeah, if you want to throw a fireball, you say fireball. The shit's funny because people are just like PvPing and like screaming the spell words at each other. Repo's good. Peak. I'd play some Peak. You got Peak? Like, what do you got, bro? Do you have a PC just to play Overwatch or Marvel Rivals? You never buy nothing? Super Battle Golf. Super Battle Golf is hard as shit. I play that. Phasmophobia. You gotta widen your horizons, dog. You gotta try new games. That's what you were saying the other day. You're like, oh, you play so many games. It's like, well, two things about that. A lot of games just fucking suck. So I don't blame you for like finding a favorite game and just playing that. But another thing is I'm just not like, I don't like playing all the games that people are like normally into. Like, I used to be heavy on Fortnite, and of course I played tons of Call of Duty, but both of those games fell off. And I never really liked the fucking sports games. I'm big on Rust. My console hours are fucking crazy on Rust, but this is just another one of those things I don't like playing alone. Because it's fucking annoying dying and losing your shit when you're doing it all by yourself. But shit, I probably know some people on Rust right now. So you don't play no other games. Crazy.
Famously said to Jeb Bush, your brother got us into the dumbest war in history. The Iraq War was a huge mistake.
Okay.
Only the weapons manufacturers got anything out of that. It hurt this country, killed a lot of people, and it drained our treasury. That was a mistake. And it was at that specific moment that Trump lost the support of Bill Kristol and everyone like Bill Kristol in Washington, the neoconservative foreign policy establishment, the people who really sincerely believed, the signers of the Project for the New American Century mission statement, which would include Dick Cheney and Bob Kagan, John Bolton, all of them. All of those people decided that Trump was not simply a candidate they couldn't support, he was their enemy. And they became famously never Trump. And that's why. That was the issue. His criticism of the Iraq War
I got some friends that play
was the
that.
issue that drove them not simply away from Trump, but to the polar opposite position. Many became Democrats, including Bill Kristol. And that really should have told us something right there. Really? That's your red line, the Iraq War? Why is that so important to you? What about the opioid crisis raging here? What about the fact that our industrial base is gone? Have you driven across America recently? How's it look? Midtown Manhattan, is it pretty clean? And this immigration question, why shouldn't we build a wall? We paid for Israel's wall. Why can't we have one? What's the answer? There was very little conversation about that. Why is this one issue, support for Israel, the only thing that matters to you? It's hard to know, but it clearly was. And in the case of Bill Kristol, we're grateful that it was, because he was so enraged by Trump that he began to tell the truth. And he began to see what he really thinks, not simply about Trump, not that interesting, but about the United States and its population, the people who live here, Americans, American citizens. What do you think of them, Bill Kristol? Well, here in 2017, Bill Kristol explains what he thinks of the rest of us. Watch.
Look, to be totally honest, if things are so bad as you say with the white working class, don't you want to get new Americans in who aren't going to be? I'm serious. You can make a case that this is going on too long and this is too crazy, probably. And I hope this thing isn't being videotaped or ever shown anywhere. Whatever tiny pathetic future I have is going to be totally collapsed. You can make a case that America has been great because every. I think John Adams said this at the beginning, right? Basically, if you're in a free society, a capitalist thriving society, after 2, 3, 4 generations of hard work, everyone becomes kind of decadent, lazy, spoiled, whatever. And then luckily, you have these waves of people coming in from Italy and Ireland and Russia and now Mexico who really want to work hard and really want to succeed and really want their kids to live better lives than them and aren't sort of clipping coupons or hoping that they can hang on. And meanwhile, we grew up with spoiled kids and so forth.
It's hard to even comprehend the contempt in that statement. We're clipping coupons and kind of hanging on, lazy, decadent, spoiled. He's describing Americans. He's describing you and the people who live next to you and down the street and across the country. He's describing people whose ancestors built this nation. And he's given up on them and he hates them. And he doesn't have the self-control to prevent himself from saying so out loud, which he just did, clipping coupons. Now, think of it this way. If you're a leader of this or any other country or any organization or any family, your duty is to the people you lead. And that duty has to be informed by love for those people. And so imagine the father of unruly kids taking the same position. My kids are hard to deal with. They're lazy. They're spoiled. They don't have any money. They're clipping coupons or whatever, just hanging on. So to a father who loves his kids, of course, the answer would be, what can I do to help? How can I make them less lazy, less entitled? How can I give them spark, drive? How can I get them on the right path? No decent father would say, these kids are way below my expectation. It's inevitable, by the way. When they get to their teen years, they're just useless. I'm getting new kids. I'm just going to adopt some new kids. Maybe they don't even speak English. I don't have to even listen to their concerns, really. Maybe they'll just be so grateful for 3.
Mind, you want to see something crazy? Okay, wait. What do you think happened to Charlie Kirk? Like, do you believe the FBI that part that I just said, do you believe like what the FBI said? I mean, just to start, like, this is the same FBI that said that there's no Epstein files and then released like 30% of them. And then, well, okay. So the whole narrative was that he got shot by that kid, Tyler Robinson, with a 30-06, which is like a hunting rifle. It's meant to kill like a 700-pound moose, right? Okay, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm moderate. I can see both sides. Like, yeah, he's kind of a dirtbag for the things he was saying. Uh, I think if it was the way that the FBI said it, and the guy shot him because of his trans affiliation stuff, then, well, it's wrong because that's just like a Christian ideology that they don't believe that gay is right or the trans is right. So anyways, what I'm saying is there is tons of people that are Christian in this country and believe the same thing. So the fact that he would shoot him for that reason is just wrong, because it's like saying that all Christians should die. That's what I think. But I get he said a lot of dirtbag shit, but nobody deserves that. Anyways, this shit's crazy. So, I don't know if you know about guns or not, but a 30-06, like I said, it's used to kill a 700-pound fucking moose. And there was no exit wound on Charlie Kirk in his neck, like the softest part of a human body, really. No exit wound. And then the autopsy guy said that, oh, he must have had a neck of steel. It's also bullshit. We could see, I mean, any of these, really.
Charlie Kirk assassination recreation with a model of a human neck, take 1. In slow motion, we can actually see that the bone not only didn't deflect the bullet, but it exploded into several pieces.
Ran over this guy today.
30 out 6 rounds absolutely hammer their target. This is what 100.
Ran over this guy today.
Let's just go. You see that? You see that right there? The mouse is on. So that's a 30-06 hitting like a gel dummy human skull. So right, you're gonna tell me there's no fucking exit wound. So full stop right there. We know what the FBI said was a lie, and he got killed by somebody else. So that's just a fact. We know that now because we know that a 30-06 would have left a fucking exit wound, so we know the FBI is lying. And like I said, same FBI that lies about the fucking Epstein files. So like, what do you expect? Then I'll show you this. And this is where I'm going to leave it up to you if you believe what I'm thinking, right?
And then that's
so
okay, right, about the
this is a video where they talk about this guy in the crowd, which is one of his security guards, and it looks like that he shoots a palm pistol. So a palm pistol is like it literally looks like a secret agent gun. Like it would fit in your hand, and the like barrel goes between your fingers, and then you squeeze it, and it shoots. But anyways, that would be consistent with the fact that there is no exit wound because the caliber would be so small. So now watch this. You don't have to believe
Charlie
me, but now
one. So this
that
one
I
is
gave
that
you all of
this
that
guy
context.
here had what they call a palm gun. So I don't know if you've ever seen a palm gun. They're circular and it's got a little, and it fits in your palm. That's why I call it a palm gun. So a lot of people are saying this guy had a palm gun. So let's watch.
In America over the last 10 years.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great. Great.
So did you see him? He went to pull up.
I know my audio was off. So that's like the back angle of this.
His sleeve, and that's
you can see this from multiple angles. So this isn't some like AI shit, you know what I'm saying? There's multiple angles of this guy doing this shit. You could see his hand right where like my mouse is. That's where he kind of does the motion that I'm talking about. but you'll see it because they
Exactly.
replay it.
When you hear the okay,
Oh, great. Oh, great. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Oh, that really looked like at that time. You know, there's probably 2 or 3 people in the crowd
on.
that have a gun.
hang on,
Oh,
and then they say that you could see. So it looks like he's pretending to pull up his sleeve and he has a palm gun. That's what it looks like.
From the front, you can see
And
this
there's
a
the
lot
bullet.
better.
That's what they're saying. Again, I'm not saying I cannot verify the veracity of these claims. I'm just showing you these are the theories that are out there. So here he is right here, standing right.
So that's what the palm pistol looks like. Like I said, it just fits in like your hand, and then that's the trigger. So you would just squeeze, like I'm saying. So it's like some secret agent shit. And obviously, if you're an intelligence agency, you would have something like that. Like say, oh, like Mossad or CIA.
Right there. That's his sleeve already rolled up to his bicep, and he feels a need to roll it up even more, which is suspicious. And this is what the gun looks like.
Gang violence.
This is your assassin right here, guys.
So do you see that?
Right, your assassin.
So what?
Assassin right here, guys. Right.
Look, you could see something in between his fingers right there.
So it looks like that little scope thing is coming in between these two fingers right here. That's what it looks like. Again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying this is a theory. And then he goes to pull up his sleeve, which is already pulled up past his bicep at the exact time Charlie Kirk gets shot.
Right here. It's unbelievable that people can watch this and say, no, you're just delusional, or no, you snorted cocaine.
So,
or
so do you see
Who
this?
is this guy?
You can see
So that looks
him squeeze it,
no.
and then you could
A lot
see
of
the
people are
recoil.
saying that looks like he's got a palm gun.
You could see the recoil in his fucking hand when he like.
That's what's being. I'm not saying he does. I'm saying that's what people are saying.
Just stupid. Like,
See the
you
recoil
can't
in
see
his
what I'm
fucking
seeing. That
hand.
is a palm gun.
Boom.
Now, you may not know
That's-
what a palm gun
get the
is,
fuck out
but
of
that is a palm gun. Look it up. That is a palm gun. You can see him squeeze it. You can see the recoil. Boom! And Charlie Kirk is dead. That is a palm gun. Boom! Charlie Kirk is dead.
Gang violence.
So it's compelling. It's compelling video.
What about the other bullet video we watched last?
We won't watch like the rest because I don't believe the other stuff he gets into. But that's what I believe, and you don't have to believe me, but it adds up with the 30-06 thing, dude. I mean, you could ask anybody you know that owns guns like that and has shot a 30-06, they'll tell you there should have been an exit wound. But they might just be brainwashed by Trump or some shit, you know. But full stop. Even if you don't believe that shit, it's like we know that a 30-06 should have left an exit wound. So we know the FBI is lying, even if it wasn't that guy.
So it's happening, y'all. It is happening. The regime thugs are beginning to turn on each other. And it is going to be a spectacle when the shit finally hits the fan. Let me tell you that right now. So the way these things usually work, and you all know this, but as a movement falls apart, then comes the blame game. Everybody points fingers at each other. You know, you're the reason why the shit hit the fan. You're the reason why things fell apart.
What do you mean? Like, I mean, you think they really investigated that shit? Yeah, no, I think the Tyler Robinson kid, I think that guy's a crash dummy. I don't think he really did that. I mean, I gave you all the facts on the 30-06. You saw it hit the targets. You can YouTube it yourself. Like, so that's all you need to know, the fact that there was no exit wound in that. But there's like people saying that like, oh, his microphone exploded and all kinds of like, but what I just showed you, it's like that guy's looking suspicious as fuck, and you could see him do the motion, and you can see Charlie in the fucking video get hit as soon as he does the motion. So
nobody can agree on that. They fracture from within, and these people become bitter enemies with each other, even more so than they would view like Democrats as enemies, because it becomes personal to them.
And there's
that, somebody else.
Evidence of him completely flipping on Israel before this happened. So I'm pretty sure that's a big factor, is he wasn't a fan of going to war with Iran, and he said that plenty of times. But I think that was the downfall, is that he was flipping on Israel after he took all the donor money.
Within the movement, betrayed the movement, if you will, right? So Trump is at 32% approval, and the knives are already out, and people are trying to save their ass for future political prospects, okay? So The Atlantic has a piece out where they effectively say J.D. Vance is throwing Pete Kegsbreth, the Secretary of War Crimes, directly under the bus, okay? So look at this here. They say, Pentagon's picture of Iran war, a rosy one? J.D. Vance concerned Trump not getting the full brief. People familiar with the matter also told reporters that Vance has questioned the accuracy of the Pentagon's information about the war. As the war between the United States and Iran escalates, a report has surfaced claiming that Vice President J.D. Vance is worried that President Donald Trump may not be getting the full picture of the conflict from the Pentagon. As per a report by The Atlantic, the Vice President's main concern as the conflict continues is that the U.S. may run out of its weapons, especially its missile stockpiles. People familiar with the matter also told reporters that Vance has questioned the accuracy of the Pentagon's information about the war. Vance's concerns also come after an NBC News report stated that Trump is being shown 2-minute Instagram reels as part of his briefings on the Iran war, which portray the U.S. wins and a relatively rosy picture. Citing officials close to the U.S. president, NBC added that a certain amount of concern remains that Trump is not receiving the full scope of information. Like, this is something you can't make up. If SNL tried to parody this and had, a sketch where Trump was being shown Instagram reels of things blowing up and he thinks the war is going swimmingly because of that, you would say, that's a little too absurd. That's a little too hyperbolic. Like, it's not that funny because, like, it's too harsh, right? But no, it's happening in real life. They're showing, like, the toddler-like president, like, look here, fella, things go kaplooey. They go boom, boom. Isn't that crazy? And he's like, yeah, I went boom, boom. I think we're winning. I think it went kaplooey, mommy. Did it go kaplooey? It went kaplooey. We're winning. And then he goes out on Twitter and goes, they're being obliterated. They're being destroyed. They're begging for mercy. They're calling me and saying, sir, you're right about everything. And you have such a massive dong, sir. That's a big swanging dick, they tell me. That's a big swanging dick. Like, we're dealing with like a baby, right? It's like a baby. It's like dealing with a baby about to throw a fucking tantrum, and you comment out, "Oh, look how good you did. A school blew up, sir. Wow, isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible?" So, but understand something. This is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance wants to be president. Everybody knows that.
He's pretty good.
And so what J.D. Vance is doing is basically throwing Pete Kegsbreth, the Secretary of War Crimes, under the bus by saying, "Hey, the Pentagon is lying to the president." And this is also J.D. Vance trying to wash his hands of all of the war crimes and the fact that this illegal war happened at all. because he remembers he's not as stupid as Trump, and he doesn't want to flip on stated beliefs that aggressively. So he remembers not that long ago when there were memes being shared where it said the pro-peace ticket, and they were out there saying, we're against all these stupid wars in the Middle East. We want to do America first. We want to build our own country and not bomb random countries overseas. He remembers all of that. And so his way of trying to save his ass politically is to say, hey man, I was warning. That's why there's been so many stories where J.D. Vance leaks to the press. Oh, I told them this wasn't a good idea. Oh, I told them this was bad. Oh, I told them this wasn't right. Then you have Susie Wiles, who's on Team Marco Rubio, being the 2028 candidate, and she sneaked into the media that J.D. Vance was actually in favor of a more aggressive approach. And, going all out once they started the war. That was Susie Wiles trying to tank J.D. Vance's future prospects and help out Marco Rubio, knowing also that the war's unpopular, so trying to taint J.D. with that. And J.D.'s been trying desperately, working overtime to convince people, no, I'm the one lone sole voice of reason behind the scenes. I'm the one person who's really keeping it real and telling the president, I don't know if you're getting the whole picture, sir, and the Pentagon is being misleading, sir, and I think we're going to run out of missiles, sir. But the other thing to keep in mind is, now there's rumors that Pete Kegsbrett, the Secretary of War Crimes, that he wants higher office. That when he's done in this Trump term, he might want to be president. And so, guys, it's already happening. It's already happening. All these fucking sniveling little snakes and weasels are trying to jockey for position to save their own ass and throw everybody else directly under the bus, okay? So they say, Vance skeptical of Pete Hegseth and Kane. So Kane is the general, of course. As per The Atlantic, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, who is the Joint Chiefs of Staff chair, have publicly stated that Washington continues to have a robust ammunition stockpile. Despite these statements in almost all Pentagon briefings, the vice president continues to doubt the availability of missile systems, expressing these concerns as his own. Rather than blaming Hegseth or Kane, Vance stated that Washington would require these same stockpiles to defend Taiwan, South Korea, and Europe. Advisors to the vice president have also stated that Vance continues to raise these issues in a way that does not cause a rift in the Trump administration. Now, by the way, that's why all this is such bullshit, and J.D. Vance is a pathetic little pussy. Mr. I'm so anti-war, I'm so anti-war. He doesn't even, express in clear terms to Trump, don't do this, this is fucking bad, this is wrong, this is gonna backfire. He's such a bitch that he'll low-key behind the scenes kind of go along with it passively, and then the second he gets the opportunity, he goes to the media and goes, oh yeah, I was totally against it. I was telling them, this is a horrible idea. So, definitely don't blame me for this illegal war of aggression that I actually supported behind the scenes every step of the way. Furthermore, Vance's concerns have been flagged in a hostile manner, with White House officials telling The Atlantic such questions are common from the president's national security team. Pentagon's picture of Iran incomplete. Officials have also stated that the Pentagon briefings, which take place at 8 a.m., come at a time when Trump is known to watch Fox News, further raising questions about Hegseth's claims made during the war. So that's the thing. So the Secretary of War Crimes does these morning fucking press conferences, and he's doing that for an audience of one for Trump. Because again, he's jockeying for position because he wants to be the one who's the heir apparent to the MAGA throne. And he knows Trump loves TV. And so, Pete goes up there, he goes, we're absolutely destroying them. It's the best thing anybody's ever seen. It's the most dominant war anybody's ever partook in. You got things blowing up all the time. We're raining down death and destruction from the sky. It's the best thing ever. And that's why TMZ asked him and was like, do you sexually get off on war? What the fuck is the matter with you? This is the strangest thing I've ever seen. He's auditioning to be the next number one guy. But what Pete Kegsbrett doesn't know is Trump doesn't allow for anybody to be the next number one guy. He's the only one. He'll throw all you to the fucking alligators in an instant. Are you kidding me? There's no doubt about that. Despite the claim from the U.S. that Iran's military has been destroyed, the Islamic Republic continues to operate 2/3 of its air force, small and fast boats, as well as its missiles. One such example was in March, when the defense secretary stated that the U.S. military had complete control of Iranian skies. However, a month later, Iranian forces downed an American fighter jet, prompting a major rescue operation in Tehran. So,
switching it up.
need it! I need it! Let's go!
On the real funding behind the so-called White House ballroom, which we have learned is definitely more than just a ballroom. And you, the American taxpayer, will be paying for it. I'll give you those details in just a bit. Later, we'll also talk about the ongoing efforts in censoring Americans and violating their First Amendment rights in an effort to prevent criticism of a foreign country. And of course, that's the country of Israel. Laura Loomer makes an appearance. Mark Levin, unfortunately, makes an appearance. But we got to keep track of who's attempting to silence American citizens as they engage in criticism and critique of a foreign country. We don't even have those types of standards here when it comes to critique of our own country. And when it comes to critique of our own country, obviously, I want to maintain and protect our rights to expression and speech. But the idea that those same protections wouldn't be available to us when it comes to criticism toward Israel. Anyway, I've got a lot to say about that. We're going to get to that later in the show. Hopefully, if we have some time, we'll also jump in on the Elon Musk lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman. That story is super juicy. Can't wait to give you the details. So without further ado, why don't we get started with our very first topic, the White House ballroom.
There's not one dime of government money going into the ballroom. Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that was filed. But the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and we're doing very well. So we're ahead of schedule. That's part of it. And the ballroom essentially becomes a shed for what's being built under the military, including from drones and including from any other thing.
About a month ago, the American people learned that Trump's ballroom renovation actually included a lot more than just renovating a ballroom. He disclosed to the American people that there would be construction done on this underground bunker. And we all know how much President Trump loves his underground bunkers, especially as protests are occurring. Seems like he wants to be prepared for a doomsday type scenario, which should be concerning to everybody. But the real question here is, where is the funding really coming from? Because fact of the matter is, while we've heard over and over again that Trump's private benefactors, his donors, would be the individuals who would be funding the renovations of this gaudy ballroom that he's trying to build. We also had learned that public money would flow into the construction of that underground bunker. And thanks to the response by President Trump following the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where a would-be assassin allegedly went after him, he took that as an opportunity to promote further construction on the ballroom, which of course there had been a stop to that construction thanks to a ruling by a federal judge. Now we're learning some more detail about what Congress is willing to do in order to give Trump the ballroom and the underground bunker that he so desperately wants. So let's get to the details. Now, as I mentioned earlier, within hours of this shooting that took place at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, several members of the Republican Party came forward, made very similar statements, and said that, we need to build this ballroom. It's very, very important. We need to build this ballroom. So, for instance, according to Washington Examiner, which, by the way, is a right-leaning publication, so they're reporting on this, and I think that their reporting on this is important. They note that on the House side, Representatives Lauren Boebert and Randy Fine have announced separate plans to introduce legislation to authorize the ballroom. Okay, fair. Now, Trump's big argument was, I don't need authorization from Congress because public money is not to be used for this ballroom. Of course, Congress has the power of the purse. However, we don't need Congress. We don't need the power of the purse because, all the donors who purchased me like a prostitute during the election, plan on funding this ballroom that I so desperately want. But it's actually a little more complicated than that. And in fact, what the Senate is proposing kind of provided a giveaway, if you will. On the Senate side, Senator Lindsey Graham, Katie Britt, and Eric Schmidt are backing legislation to appropriate at least, get a load of this, $400 million to build the ballroom. Wait, what? I thought we didn't need public money for the ballroom. Was Erica Kirk. I know that she put out a video. I was kind of iffy on whether or not we'd cover it, but we are going to cover it. So just stick around for that. We'll do that later in this hour, maybe the bonus episode for our members. And if it does come to that, you can become a member by going to tyt.com/join. I'm not saving it for the bonus episode, but as you guys know, there's so much to cover and I want to prioritize other stories before we get to that. So let's get to our next story.
We need to start having justified, I guess you could call it like a mainstream mass Red Scare movement where we start rounding people up who express these sentiments in support of communism and Islamic Jihad.
And you heard people say, don't you believe in the First Amendment? They don't even know what the First Amendment believes. Do you want to deplatform people? You know, the libs do that. I don't have any problem with deplatforming Nazis or jihadis.
Yeah, well, the problem is Mark Levin labels anyone and everyone who simply and merely criticizes Israel a Nazi or a jihadist. And so if we're going to allow lunatics like that to violate Americans' First Amendment rights because they dare criticize Israel, if we're going to allow them to be the arbiters of who is deemed a Nazi, then you can kiss your First Amendment rights goodbye. Now, Laura Loomer and Mark Levin, two of the most fervently pro-Israel commentators in American media, are now calling for Americans to lose their rights for merely criticizing Israel. And anyone that they smear as an Islamist or a jihadist or a Nazi would be a target of this witch hunt brigade. I'm not kidding. So I'm going to show you the receipts, including a lengthy list of the individuals that Mark Levin specifically has referred to as a Nazi. Disturbingly, both Loomer and Levin have the president's ear, and that's why they're worth discussing and talking about here. So the Loomer segment that you just watched in that video was from last night's edition of Loomer Unleashed. No one wants that, where she was discussing the second indictment of James Comey. That's a story that we will be covering on the show a little later. But you'll notice that she mentions several people who have nothing to do with James Comey at all, right? Who have never threatened the president in any way, shape, or form, but have definitely been critical of Israel. So she exploits the Comey indictment in which the federal government, the DOJ, alleges that Comey threatened Trump's life. We'll get to that story later. You could decide whether or not you believe that. But my point is Loomer exploits that to make a point about Israel's critics in the US. And she just smears them as people who made threats against Trump without providing a shred of evidence that that's the case. She's inciting violence toward these people. So let's get some more of her take here.
People need to start going to jail. You shouldn't be allowed to make these types of comments if you're Jimmy Kimmel and Kathy Griffin and all these other crazies out there, Rosie O'Donnell and James Comey. We know all the worst offenders, right? Hassan Piker. Who else out there? There's so many of these lunatics out there. There's so many of these communist Muslim freaks that make threats against the president on a daily basis. Mehdi Hassan. I mean, these people are just so sick, the worst of the worst in our society, and it's time for them to start getting rounded up in jail. They need to go to jail. I think Mehdi Hassan needs to be denaturalized. I think a lot of these Muslim agitators who are at these protests holding up these signs, and the communists as well, we need to start rounding these people up. We need to start channeling our inner...
See, this is why I'm trying to tell you I'm a moderate, because I understand border security, but this bitch is a freak. She's just like, oh, we need to round up all the Muslims. This bitch is fucking... She's like, oh, this TV show host that's Muslim that happens to hate Trump, well, he needs to be denaturalized. Like what?
Joseph McCarthy. We need to start going on our own witch hunts in America against these communist jihadists.
Yeah, mission accomplished, Laura. That's what you do every day. Someone's funding you to literally do that every day. The people she listed haven't made threats against Trump's life. Mehdi Hassan, really? He made a threat against Trump? Where? When? How? And we're talking about Laura Loomer, who regularly doxes private Americans. These are people who are not public figures, but happen to be married to or in a family with someone who is a public figure and is just simply critical of Israel. Okay, she did it to Trump. She did it to Cenk's wife. Another person whose identity I definitely know and will be revealing soon once I get one more piece of confirmation, which I'm very close to, did it to me, doxed my husband and his place of work. When you're doxing someone's place of work, what do you think you're doing there? Now, they do it under the cover of we're trying to get them fired, which, by the way, is bad enough, especially since they're trying to engage in collective punishment over an American citizen's criticism of Israel, which is protected by the First Amendment. But that's bad enough. Trying to get someone fired over the commentary of their spouse? Bad enough. But Loomer knows what she's doing. Okay, the so-called Persian Jewess on X, Rachel, who decided to dox my husband, knows what she was doing. They're inciting violence. They're literally letting people know, these unhinged Zionists in this country who put out insane threats against Americans on a regular basis. I can show you the social media messages I've gotten, including IDF soldiers showing me their weapons and basically implying that they're going to come for me and slaughter me. They make those threats all the time. So they know how unhinged these individuals are. And when you're putting a person's place of work out there in the public, you're making a call for action, aren't you? That goes a little beyond just getting someone fired. You're directing violence toward them. That's what Laura Loomer does every single day. She directs violence against American citizens the same way her injector, okay, incites violence against her face. Girl, you got to balance out the temples. You're going to plump up those cheeks. You got to balance out the temples. What you doing? You look like a clown. Okay, but that's beside the point. You don't need that much filler in your cheeks. That's crazy. But she's not the only one. She's not the only Israeli firster who hates our constitutional rights, because our constitutional rights protect our freedom to be critical of a foreign country like Israel, which is leveling southern Lebanon right now as we speak, including Christian villages.
Yep.
So Mark Levin is also going on his own personal crusade, his own little McCarthy, witch hunt against Israel's critics. And again, you'll see Mark Levin, claim that his main concern here, his real concern, is the rhetoric surrounding Trump and whether or not it incites violence. Okay, but then you'll catch what Levin is actually concerned about. Take a look.
I'm talking about the kind of speech that really gets in the head of people who want to do grave damage to other people. Incitement. And I'm not talking about it in an ambiguous way. When you get a guy that talks about killing a senator, oh, I really didn't mean it. Or when you get a guy that says, yeah, I don't know if there's really rape. Can you prove it? And so forth on October 7th. Well, he's allowed to say that. But in the pattern of what this person is saying, what is it that they're trying to do? Have a real discussion? No, he'll say that, but he's not. The overthrow of the country, let me ask you this. Do you think the founders would have put up with this?
If you want an example of the types of discussions or debates that Mark Levin engages in, just check out his interview with Joe Kent. The Trump official who stepped down from the administration after Israel goaded us into a disastrous war against Iran. Yeah, that Joe Kent. Because he was kind enough to go on Mark Levin's show. Mark Levin wasn't interested in having a debate or a discussion. The hog pretended like he couldn't hear Joe Kent. As soon as Joe Kent started cooking, he immediately went to break. That's who Mark Levin is. Mark Levin's loyalty is not to the United States or its Constitution or the American people. Mark Levin's loyalties lie someplace else, and he proves it every single day. Whenever someone in this country, someone who has a microphone, someone who has the power of the bully pulpit to push for something, decides to push for the deterioration of Americans' constitutional rights on behalf of a foreign country, that person is not loyal to the United States. Clearly. My heritage
The fuck?
is Armenian. I love Armenia. I love the Armenian people.
Oh.
You can be as critical of Armenia as you want. The idea that I would ever even consider going on a witch hunt against my fellow Americans because they're critical of the Armenian government. And that's the other thing. Man, that insecurity, that is some deep-seated insecurity where you can't handle criticism, where you have to silence it, you have to squash it immediately. Why? Why is that? What is it that you don't want the American people to learn about? Is it the same things that, Robert Maxwell didn't want American children to learn about in our public schools as he was publishing our history and social studies books? You know, the same Robert Maxwell who worked for Mossad and was Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. Do you share some commonalities with him, Levin? Now, over the weekend, Levin referred to the Marxist Islamic left. This is my favorite tactic of like the Fox News crowd. Just put a bunch of scary sounding words together, even if it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But anyway, so he referred to the Marxist Islamic left and the woke Reich, referring to conservatives who are critical of Israel, as the enemy within. I would venture to say the enemy within would want to, take rights away from Americans. I think that's the enemy within. And in case you're not quite tired of the phrase Islamic jihadist yet, here's more of Levin's crash out.
This guy, Hassan Piker, who is a radical Islamist, if not jihadist. He celebrates 9/11. He says he has no patriotic connection to the United States, and on and on and on. October 7th, he was okay with all the raping and the murdering and the mayhem. The Democrat Party embraces this guy. You got people like Ro Khanna who go on a show and they're proud of it and they go back. You've got Democrats campaigning with this guy, and he urged people, I think, to harm you, as a matter of fact. What do you make of that?
Ro Khanna, huh? Interesting. Look, sometimes it pains me to defend Haas because Haas has never once defended me, even though he knows who I am and knows that the attacks against me are ridiculous. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and defend Haas. I disagree with him on some stuff. Who cares? He is not a jihadist. That is an insane statement to make. But he is vocally critical of Israel, and he is obviously incredibly popular and influential. And that's the thing. They target those who are effective in communicating what's actually going on, how much of a chokehold Israel has on the United States, how much undue influence Israel and its lobby has on the American political system. And Mark Levin no like that. He yearns for the days when the gatekeepers were able to withhold that information from the American people. But Mark, those days are gone. They're gone. And the harder they try to censor us, the more it backfires. That's the thing. They don't realize it. I mean, I don't want to help them out, but if they were smart, they would realize, oh yeah, that all that censorship we're trying to do is actually backfiring. It's making people more curious about what Israel's up to. How do I know that? Well, because I know people who have been targeted by the likes of Mark Levin, Canary Mission, Stop Anti-Semitism, all these gross, shadowy groups who target specific individuals who are private citizens. And they might not have even said anything about Israel. right? They might not even be political in any way, shape, or form, but they have someone in their family who's a public figure that's critical of Israel. And then when they become targets, you know what happens? They get real curious. They get curious about what Israel's up to. And then they learn more. So what Mark Levin and Laura Loomer and Rachel, the Persian Jewess, like to do on social media by doxing people and targeting people and censoring people, that is only helping Americans who want other Americans who are in the dark to know what the truth is about Israel and its undue influence over our political system. So thank you, I guess. Now, it would be okay, I guess, if it didn't incite violence or attempt to destroy the lives of innocent Americans who are doing absolutely nothing wrong. But it's a lose-lose situation when they engage in this. But they're too dumb to understand it or realize it. Just because you were able to effectively censor Americans in the past, and when I say effective, I mean literally effective. So many Americans were in the dark about what our relationship with Israel really is. But you can't do that anymore. Those days are gone. They're done, finished. We just had 2.5 years of a live stream genocide. You think we're going to be able to unsee that? We see how much money we are willing to sacrifice, how many American soldiers we're willing to sacrifice for Israel. You think we're going to forget about that because you censored Hassan? Wake the F up, man. And by the way, let's get back to the notion that Americans should be rounded up and jailed simply by being determined as Nazis by the actual modern day Nazis, the people who think the mass slaughter of innocents is okay, people like Laura Loomer and Mark Levin. Who has Mark Levin referred to as a Nazi? It's a long list, real long list. And I want to thank the redheaded libertarian for putting this list together on X. This has been, what I'm about to share with you has been adapted from the list that she shared on X. So this is, again, everyone who Mark Levin has called a Nazi since 2024. The Democrats, like the entirety of the Democratic Party, okay. The Democrat media, an Australian bakery, the Pakistani defense minister, Scott Horton. He calls Scott Horton a Nazi. The entire Libertarian Party, man, whole political parties are apparently Nazis, according to Mark Levin here. College students, just in general, all college students, you guys are all Nazis, according to Mark Levin. You should be rounded up. You should have your First Amendment rights stripped from you. The Ayatollah, Jake Shields, Nick Fuentes, Putin's buddies. I don't even know who Putin's buddies are, but apparently Putin's buddies. Dan Bilzerian, the Houthis, Dave Smith. Dave Smith is Jewish, but okay. Tucker Carlson, Beirut, the entire city of Beirut, Lebanon. Hezbollah, a veteran who asked Mark to be more tolerant. There's more. There's Myron Gaines, the city of London, everyone in London's guilty. Hamas, Thomas Friedman, the terrorists, the woke Reich, Graham Plattner, the entirety of the United Nations, of course, obviously, Harvard, top university in the country, if not the world, Nazi. Amsterdam, Columbia University students, the New York Times, which has provided cover for Israel's war crimes time and time again and serves as stenographers oftentimes for members of the intelligence community that try to drag us into wars to begin with. I mean, it's never ending. The Iranian Nazi regime, the Islamic Nazi regime, the Islamo-Nazi regime, the Islamist Nazi regime, all of Iran, the new Nazis, a protester on a subway. I mean, Rashida Tlaib, Ibrahim Raisi, the New York Times correspondent, Joe Biden's entire State Department, the president of Turkey, college basketball analyst Bruce Pearl. What did Bruce Pearl do? What did Bruce Pearl do to be called a Nazi by Mark Levin? By the way, for all the right-wingers who get upset at left-wingers referring to Trump as a fascist or a Nazi because they feel that it incites violence toward him, come get your boy, all right? Because he's literally calling anyone and everyone a Nazi merely for being critical of Israel. That's it. That's all it takes. certain Arab liberals and journalists, anyone who associates with Dave Smith. Oh, I guess I'm a Nazi then, because I associate with Dave Smith, who, by the way, very well read and crushes in debates. That's why he's calling him a Nazi. Reporter Lulu Garcia Navarro, ISIS. 17 random dudes on X. Okay. All right. You guys get the point. You guys get the point. So if it were up to them, if it were up to Mark Levin, all of those people, places, cities, whatever, institutions I listed, Nazis, should be rounded up, thrown in prison, First Amendment rights taken away. These people are unhinged, and they don't realize how counterproductive they're being for their own cause. And look, I want to end with one other thing because it's really important. This kind of garbage, unfortunately, reflects poorly on the Jewish community, and it's unfair to them because they didn't ask for this. But when you have lunatics like Laura Loomer and Mark Levin, presenting themselves as the representatives of the entire Jewish community, idiots are unfortunately going to believe them and think that, yeah, this is what all Jewish people want. They want violations of constitutional rights. They want Americans to be rounded up and thrown in prison over criticism of Israel. No, but they don't want that. Some do, unfortunately, but you can't make blanket statements about an entire population of people because there are plenty of Jewish people who look at this, they hate it, and honestly, they're afraid for their own safety because this is the kind of stuff that unfortunately leads to unhinged people directing violence toward them. So please don't do that. Please, because it's so dumb to stoop as low as these bottom feeders like Laura Loomer and Mark Levin. Jewish Americans are our fellow Americans, period. They should be protected. Their rights should be protected. Our rights should be protected. And the only people in this story that deserve condemnation are the likes of Laura Loomer and Mark Levin. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
This guy, Hassan Piker, he says he is a patriot to the United States.
I mean, we got to fund a war on behalf of a foreign country. That's way more important, isn't it? I'm being sarcastic in case you didn't pick up on that. Free speech is dead. RIP says, I love your passion, Anna. You have personal stories of Palestinians and their love you felt. I heard your change of tone of voice. Yeah, every day, like, I don't know if you guys go through this. I certainly do. And it's impossible to avoid, for me at least. Sometimes I'll be on social media and you come across a video of just the utter depravity carried out by the IDF. You'll see a parent, running with their dead child in their arms after a strike. And it's just, I can't stand it. It kills me. It really.
Agreed.
Real quick, I wanted to read one comment from our Twitch community. By the way, you can become a subscriber on our Twitch account by joining through Amazon Prime. You get a free subscription every month. Just go to tyt.com/prime to learn how. But I wanted to read a comment from YTP Renewed because I kind of agree with, not kind of, I definitely agree with you on this. Forget the bidding process when it comes to government contracts for projects like the ballroom and stuff like that. Forbid all private company involvement in public services and nationalize all public services directly so as to open the books on every possible conflict of interest. I think that there's a little more nuance to that, but I mostly agree with you. I want more oversight, and I want more than anything consequences when loopholes are misused, like that emergency loophole that the Trump administration used in order to grant that no bid contract. Like, there should be consequences for doing that. That was not an emergency. Like, remodeling fountains is not an emergency, obviously. So is anyone going to do anything about it? No? Okay, then why do we even have these rules and laws to begin with if they're not going to be enforced? Drives me crazy. Anyway, let's get back to the show. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't care that much about the story. I just don't. And I think it's just going to fizzle out and go nowhere. But I think it's important to cover it anyway because your resources are being utilized in order to pursue this case. With that in mind, let's get to it.
Now they're back. This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago. And this won't be the end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary, so let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values.
That's right. If anything, the Department of Justice is a government body that is supposed to withhold, Epstein files from the American people and engage in cover-ups. That's something that they're really good at doing. Anyway, that was former FBI Director James Comey. It turns out that the Trump DOJ, Department of Justice, has indicted former FBI Director James Comey yet again. This is now the second time. The first time didn't work out so well for Trump, who weirdly holds a grudge on everything except his would-be assassins. When it comes to his would-be assassins, water under the bridge, don't care, never talks about it again. When it comes to James Comey or his political opponents, won't let it go. When it comes to the fact that he lost the 2020 election, won't let it go. Assassins, though, totally fine. Not a big deal and not suspicious at all. Anyway, so when it comes to the indictment this time around, it's over a 2025 Instagram post allegedly threatening President Donald Trump. I had totally forgotten about this, but apparently Trump hasn't, and he is so thirsty to retaliate against what he views as his political opponents. And to be fair, James Comey, the whole Russiagate thing was pretty bad, and I fell for it. I have no problem admitting I fell for it. I have no problem apologizing when I realize I'm wrong, despite people thinking that I don't. I definitely do, and that's probably one of the most embarrassing moments in my career. But nonetheless, Trump wants retaliation. And so he's looking for anything that could potentially work. And the indictment this time around has to do with this post from May of last year. This is what James Comey posted. It's a photo of seashells. He says, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Okay. So apparently that was interpreted as a threat to Trump's life, which sounds crazy, but you read a little deeper into it and you can kind of understand the rationale, even if you disagree with it. So in restaurant lingo, for instance, 86, let's put the picture back up while I describe it. So 86 is code for getting rid of or canceling an item on the menu. It could also mean like kill this item on the menu, but that's typically not what 86ing something is associated with. It just means getting rid of something on the menu. So since it's 86-47, with Trump being the 47th president of the United States, it's been interpreted as a threat to Trump's life. Okay. Now, Comey has deleted that post since. He said that it never even occurred to him that it would be interpreted as being violent. And to be quite frank, I don't know what Comey is thinking, whether or not, it occurred to him or not. But in a subsequent Instagram post in May, Comey said that he assumed the shells he saw on a beach walk were a political message. Okay, let's pause. Wait a minute. So you're assuming it's a political message, but you don't know what the political message is, and you felt the need to post it on Instagram. That's not doing you any favors, homeboy, but I'll continue with the rest of that. So he says that, he saw on the beach walk were a political message and that he didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence, adding that he opposed violence of any kind. But, Trump holds a grudge and he despises, he loathes James Comey. So he used that post as, an avenue in which to get an indictment against Comey. So the charges, which were approved by a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina, include the following: making a threat against the president of the United States, transmitting a threat in interstate commerce. And these are truly ambitious charges. So we need to be real about that. I think you guys probably could figure that out without me having to spell it out for you. But nonetheless, Comey had suggested that he stumbled on the shell formation during a walk along the beach and did not arrange the shells himself. There is generally a high legal threshold to charge someone with threatening a person based on their language, and legal experts said it would be tough for the Justice Department to build a strong case with just the seashells. So that's the question. Like, was this really a threat? What were Comey's intentions? Like, you have to prove that he intended to threaten the president's life or threaten violence against the president of the United States. Now, Acting Attorney General, I should say, Todd Blanche, was asked whether this is going to be a case they can actually win and whether they can prove what they're claiming here. Let's see how Blanche did when he answered.
How will you prove intent when, as the director had acknowledged, Mr. Comey said he did not associate 86 with doing harm, and he took it down promptly, said it was political speech, not an intent to harm the president?
Well, it's not. This case was indicted today. This conduct occurred about a year ago, May 15th of last year. There's been a tremendous amount of investigation. And how do you prove intent in any case? You prove intent with witnesses, with documents, with the defendant himself to the extent it's appropriate. And that's how we'll prove intent in this case. And so I think that talking about what Mr. Comey will or will not do if there's a trial, when there's a trial, it's very premature for me to do that today.
Who are your witnesses? Come on. Okay, well, let's give him one more chance. Maybe he can elaborate a little more. Give us something to tell us that there's actually a case here. Let's watch.
You at least give us a sense of whether you have hard evidence or evidence that shows that Mr. Comey intended for President Trump to be harmed. And then secondarily, for critics who say, where does free speech end and an actual threat of violence begin?
He's texting people
I don't know
back, fucking
critics say that,
storming my
especially
phone. My
today.
goodness.
But it's not a very difficult line to look at, and it's not, in my mind, a difficult line for one to cross over one way or the other. You are not allowed to threaten the President of the United States of America. That's not my decision. That's Congress's decision and a statute that they passed that we charge multiple times a year. And so whether there is a defense, as you just described, maybe there is, but the government will have evidence. I am not going to talk about the evidence that we have. That's unfair to him. It's unfair to the prosecutors, but it's enough to say that the grand jury returned an indictment.
Do you think maybe we could bother you to investigate some of the names in the Epstein files? You know, considering that has to do with like the rape of minors, the rape and trafficking of minors. Do you think maybe you could look into that? Since it seems like you've got a lot of time on your hands where you're like literally prosecuting someone over an Instagram post that might not have anything to do with Trump or might not be a threat at all. I mean, it's so obvious based on his behavior in that press conference that they don't have evidence that this is lawfare. And I get it. Trump is bitter because he feels that he's a victim of lawfare. So can we just end it? Can we end all of it? Let's just stop. Let's please stop, because we, the American people, pay for this. And it's obviously, in my opinion, based on what we've seen so far, a sham investigation, a sham indictment. Okay, so CBS News pressed Blanche on a similar post that Jack Posobiec made in 2022 about Joe Biden. I guess this is a code that I just wasn't privy to. But back in 2022, Jack Posobiec wrote 8646 referring to Biden as the 46th president of the United States. And I am really curious, why the double standard? Is Jack Posobiec going to be prosecuted for making a threat on the president's life? Let's see what Blanche has to say about that.
Let's do a compare and contrast, Mr. Blanche. In 2022, someone well known in right-wing circles, Jack Posobiec, posted on X 8646. He did not take it down. He did not apologize. Mr. Comey has done both of those things. The Biden Justice Department never prosecuted him. By the standard of that grand jury, Jack Posobiec should face charges as well. Will the Justice Department pursue that case? Because they sound very similar.
That's just completely not true. That's not how a grand jury does its work. They don't just look at a single image and then say, okay, yes, we'll indict, or okay, no, we won't indict. They do an investigation. This conduct took place in May of last year, May 15th. It has been almost a year. I assure you, the FBI, the Secret Service, and the U.S. Attorney's Office have not been sitting around doing nothing. They have been investigating. I have no idea whether there was an investigation into the other times that post has been made and whether that investigation yielded different results. This investigation that we undertook resulted in a 2-count indictment.
It's embarrassing. Now, to be clear, I don't think Jack Posobiec should be indicted based on that post. I also don't think that James Comey should have been indicted based on his Instagram post. I think this is a giant waste of time. I think there are other examples of what the Department of Justice should be pursuing that for whatever reason they've decided against pursuing, including, the Epstein file investigations and all that stuff. This is obviously a politically motivated lawfare project, and it's sad. It's pathetic. It makes Todd Blanche look pathetic. If there's a genuine threat to the president's life, absolutely pursue that. But what is he talking about here when he says it's, with Jack Posobiec, it was just one post and there's no other evidence. You have no other evidence on Comey. Come on. Now, I hate being put in a position to defend Comey. I think Comey sucks. But it would be wonderful if we were led by political leaders who actually cared about making our lives better, as opposed to making good on whatever grudge they have with their political opponents. And again, it is super weird to me that Trump is more obsessed with going after Comey and never makes mention about the individuals who actually attempted to rob him of his life. Allegedly. Anyway, we got to take a break. We'll be back with more. I'm not sure what we're going to cover because we have limited time, but there's a lot. So come back for the surprise.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
What's up, y'all? So, wanted to...
Whereas Hassan Piker referred to Orthodox Jews as inbred. Whereas Hassan Piker downplayed sexual violence. This is one that really bothers me the most, actually. Committed by Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization, against innocent civilians on October 7, 2023, stating, quote, "It doesn't matter if effing rapes happen on October 7th.
Yeah, so
that
dishonest.
doesn't change the dynamic for me."
His point was that doesn't mean genocide is okay. Even
Exactly.
If, yeah, that's what he's saying.
And here's the thing is, the whole thing, and it just proves the point of why it was so important and brave, the work that people like Ryan did in exposing the fact that the limited evidence that there is, the lack of evidence of what was claimed, which is systematic as a weapon of war, rape and sexual violence being used on October 7th. There is not evidence of that. And it's not an accident that they pushed that. And you can see, exactly how they use that to justify genocide. And then they say, no, if you don't accept all of our most maximalist claims, or if you, Hassan has always been careful to say, yeah, I don't know, it's very possible that did happen. And what he said in this quote is, even if it did, that doesn't mean that it justifies horrors in response to that, which is just, that's a very basic moral statement. Anyway, the last one here is...
Well, wait a second. Didn't they have to retract the article?
They
Wasn't there this huge article?
Yes. So this was Screams Without Words in the New York Times. And
the person who wrote it turned out to be in the fucking IDF or something like that, right? If I'm trying to remember the details off the top of my head, but there was this big scandal about how basically compromised the person was who wrote it. That this was literally just like war propaganda, like atrocity propaganda.
They pulled up someone who had like next to no reporting experience, who was, you know, had a background of bias, and I think had been previously in the IDF, if memory serves. But if you look at the details too, they had to retract some significant parts of their claims because it was contradicted by their own prior reporting.
See? Yeah.
It was so flimsy what they offered there that the New York Times, like, main podcast, The Daily, refused to do an episode on it because they thought it was so weak. And then one of the people who was quoted in it retracted their claims. There were it was a mess. But they didn't retract the article. They really should have. It just now has parts of it that were taken out, long editorial notes, etc. So yeah, and I mean, this has always been this very, it's one of those things where you feel like an asshole for being like, you know, there isn't evidence for this mass rape claim, but you can see now why it was important, because they really did use that as like, this is why it's justified anything Israel does, because these people are barbarians, they're monsters, they're animals, they're not really human. That's what they want you to see, is that there's no negotiating with these people. Like, this is what you have to do. So anyway, it was really noteworthy to me that was in there.
It's also like the fake claim that there were 40 beheaded babies.
Yes,
and
exactly,
that they found
like
babies in ovens. That was just literally lies.
Yes.
Directly from the IDF. They were lying specifically to set the table to start carpet bombing innocent people, starving people to death, and again, to your point, to turn around and say, look, these people are monsters. There's like, we have no choice but to do this.
Yes.
And like, everybody who went along with that has the blood of innocent Palestinians on their hands.
Yes.
And that's what these fucking assholes are doing, is they're trying to, like, you know, spread that same sort of atrocity propaganda and make it so like Hassan is untouchable. Somebody made a good point. They were like, the goal here is to make it so that like he gets shunned out of mainstream politics now, because he sort of like was able to sneak into mainstream politics in a way by being interviewed by all these like big publications and shit.
Yep.
And they're basically trying to like make it so the Pod Save guys are like, oh, they won't touch Hassan again, and Hassan won't be invited on like the mainstream podcast anymore. That's the goal. That's what they're trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, and let me just read this last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then and then we can talk more about that. But the last one is, whereas Hassan Piker has expressed support for Hamas on multiple occasions, including on April 14, 2026, stating Hamas over Israel every single time, and doubling down on claims in multiple media appearances that Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel.
Okay.
I mean, I see no problem with that.
And also, by the way, he's literally doing math. That's the point, is the math. Where, how many people died on October 7th? Let's say 1,000. And how many people died? Let's say minimum 70,000 in Gaza, but I think the actual number is like 200,000. Okay? But he's doing math. He's doing math. He's saying mathematically the IDF is worse.
Well, and look at all the countries that Israel attacks. I mean,
yeah, they're doing multiple genocides. They're in Lebanon now doing a genocide.
Nation does not they're not in the same plane whatsoever as this, like, you know, this group Hamas and whatever. Anyway, and the worst part of it is, just think about Gottheimer in particular, who is one of the foremost defenders of genocide in the country, certainly in the United States Congress.
Yep.
And you are going to lecture us on morals? You're going to condemn Hassan when you are using your
I'm just
power as
smoking,
an
bro. It's
elected
loud.
representative to run cover for and support and arm and fund and back relentlessly a genocide? Like, that is what's so disgusting about this. And I'm so sick of, like, we're in, like
I'm
week 4 of
listening,
the
I just have a
Sondbiker
life.
discourse. I keep telling
That's why
myself,
I
like, I'm
was
not
on
going to
my
talk about this
phone.
anymore. But they just keep going. Fox had that stupid graphic that was, like, all the Democrats that are associated with Hassan Piker, which I would have been very offended if I was him, because it said that Rahm Emanuel was associated with him. Like, what is this slander? This is outrageous.
It's because he said he would do his show, I think. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why they
and
put
Gavin
him on
Newsom
there.
was in there, too. I'd be offended
Because
by
he
that
said
one,
he would
too.
do his show, too.
Yeah.
But, okay, so Gottheimer and Lawler, I saw the thing. It said, like, one of them takes $1 million from AIPAC. One of them took $2 million from AIPAC. Both of them have taken fawning pictures with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right.
So, like, to your point, Crystal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear anything from these people. They can shut the fuck up fucking forever, because they are terrorist supporters. You actually support terrorists, okay? He's not the problem. You're the fucking problem. Look in the mirror. And by the way, for every Democrat that's going to fall in line like a little fucking cuck and support this, fuck you. You're persona non grata, and we should primary the shit out of you and kick you the fuck out of the party. Because you don't represent the base. You actually don't represent the base. When the base is like, what is it now? Like 20% of Democrats are pro-Israel? It's something insanely small.
Maybe.
Yeah, insanely small now.
Yeah, bro,
yeah,
I
because people
can't
see the
smoke
genocide in
my
Gaza. They see them
fucking
doing
bong on the Twitch
mission
stream.
creep and pogroms in the West Bank. They see them doing a genocide now in Lebanon as well. They see the Netanyahu dog walk Trump into this illegal war against Iran, not to take anything away from Trump himself being a warmonger and a monster. But people see that, and you're just trying to pretend like that's not the case.
Yeah.
And you know what Hassan said in response to this? He said what's that famous saying? I've seen what makes you...
Crazy, bro.
I've seen what makes you cheer.
He was like...
Why you so worried about what I'm doing, bro? You give up on me. Like, what? Okay.